Okay, guys, Johnny Wonder with GolfWRX. I don't think anybody's logged in yet, so I'm going to give it a little bit of time for it to ramp up. We'll see how this goes. I don't know who is going to participate in this thing today, so I am doing it from my office in Toronto. I work out of a film office in downtown Toronto, so if you guys have any questions, fire away. I'm kind of here to answer anything and everything that you guys want to hear. So, okay, good. Thank you, Jason. The audio is good. That's always a challenge. If you guys listen to my podcast, sometimes the audio's in and out, so it's good that you guys can hear me. Look, this is sort of an experiment. So I'm excited to just interact with some people, whether it's 2 people, 5 people, 100 people. Just want to make sure if you guys have any questions that I can answer them for you. So I guess I'll just kind of wait till people start firing away. But I guess I'll start just kind of talking about the last 2 to 3 months of this journey to kind of get to the PGA Show and how it starts and kind of what happens for somebody at my job when club companies are going through launching new equipment. So I don't know how many of you that will be logging in here or follow me on Instagram, but as you may have seen, I travel quite a bit, especially the last 2 or 3 months. You know, starting in basically with Tiger and Phil in Las Vegas, and after that it went kind of haywire from there. I was back in Toronto for like 2 days, and then I had traveled to Southern California. I was in Carlsbad, Palm Desert, Scottsdale, back to Carlsbad, back to Toronto, back to Scottsdale, back to Carlsbad, and then to Los Angeles, and then ultimately in Orlando for the PGA Show. So that covered basically Ping, Callaway, Titleist, Fujikura, PXG, TaylorMade, Hanma, and then the PGA Show. I'm probably missing somebody in there. PXG. I don't know if I mentioned that, but so if you guys have any specific questions about what those experiences are like, what each company kind of does, happy to answer those questions for you. I guess I'll probably start also with a question back to you guys. How are you liking the content over the last, you know, I would say 9 to 12 months? Obviously the team is has expanded a little bit, and we've, you know, dived into some video content and podcasts, and we've gotten some great feedback from in the forums and on the site. But you know, it's also different to hear it from you guys that are here. So curious to know what you guys think about that and the direction the site's going. We're really proud of it, but obviously it's a growing thing, and we want to push it as far down the river as we possibly can. So I got a question, I think, from Jason. Were you surprised by PXG's new driver price point being more in line with the rest of the industry? It was a necessity, I think. I think, you know, what PXG did with their irons is a couple of different things. One is Bob made it surprisingly okay for people to drop $3 or $4 grand on a set of irons, and he took that off the table as being sort of a bad thing, because obviously there's people out there that will pay for big dollars for a set of irons, and, you know, obviously the rest of their equipment was expensive too, and their driver, you know, and I love those guys over at PXG, but their first driver was not that great, and it was expensive. And whether or not they knew it or agree with me, it doesn't really matter. They made some adjustments, and the driver that they have now is a little bit more right size for the market. It's a little more accessible. It's still expensive. I mean, $500, $600 for a driver to me is still expensive. But the quality of the driver that they came out with this year sounds good, flies good. It's not the longest one of all the bunch that I hit, but they did a good job. And it's actually a driver that I think might sneak into a couple of tour players' bags that aren't on staff with PXG for the first time. So that's, you know, that's good. What that means for the rest of us, whether or not you stick that driver in your bag is kind of up to you. I would always, you know, encourage everybody to go get fitted. It's kind of a boring answer, but when it comes to PXG driver, you have to hit it and see if you like it. I really enjoyed it. It just of all the drivers that I hit, there was one that I actually hit a lot better. So that is the PXG answer for Jason. Jason, thank you for that. Shane Harper, love the podcast. That warms my heart because that started out as a sort of an experiment as well. We have 3 or 4 good podcasts now, and I think there's some more that are going to get thrown up in the hopper here pretty soon. Would love to know what we're missing in regards to content for podcasts. If there's a show or a type of show that you guys want to know more about, whether it's the history of the game or golf course design or whatever, fire away. We want to keep this as interactive as possible. Matt, sorry, man, I'm probably butchering your name. Matt Pishing really enjoys the recent content, so that's great. I'll kind of actually, this is a good way to start the idea for my podcast is I'm a total gearhead. If you guys could notice on the show, I'm a total gear nerd. And, I just wanted to have a show that went a couple of ticks past appropriate when it came to, in regards to discussing equipment. I have some close friends and we sit around kind of like the campfire and just talk about clubs and what guys were hitting and why they were hitting it. And, for example, Freddie Couples had that ram bore through 3-wood in his bag for a long time. And just the story of how that made it in there and why it stayed in there for so long. Like, these are the questions that I want to know. So I wanted a podcast that was around that. And it was an idea. And 2 days later, I was on the air doing, testing the idea. And that's that. So that's where the show came from. It came together quick. I am not a podcast expert. I listen to them, but my interview style and the format of my show is ever evolving. But it's been fun, and it's a blessing that GolfWRX gave me the opportunity to do it. So Shane Harper, I love that you guys like the GearJunkie podcasts. Those ones, the ones with Zach Tyler and Jeff Halverson, excuse me. I like that you guys like those because I'm talking to myself, and they go about gear geeking out in different ways. So that's good that you like those. This is a good question from Matt Pishing. Question on the manufacturing visits. How much is marketing branding as you personally getting to try the new stuff? Assume the ratio varies by company. It really does. And I want to give you a really good example. So as you can imagine, PXG's way that they go about launching a piece of equipment to the media is a very intimate, just all-inclusive experience. So they fly you out to Scottsdale National. There's these villas on site that you stay in. It's first class. It's like going to Jurassic Park. And the cool thing about it is not only do they run you through the equipment and tell you all the tech stuff, there's a tech presentation, but then on top of that, what they do is you go get fitted with their fitters, and you could be there for an hour and a half, and they have top fitters, and you're just there nerding out on equipment and all the new stuff. And you kind of go to your separate quarters after that. And then you wake up the next morning and your equipment's on the range ready for you to hit. And then after that, you go play, which for me is the best way to test equipment. It's one thing to just hit it and get on the launch monitor, but to go out there and play 18 holes with it and see how it performs. They're the only guys that really do it that way. Most of the time, you're sort of in a big group of people on a big range with a bunch of fitters, and you're hitting equipment ball after ball. But you don't really end up with anything that kind of lands in your hands that's yours that you can go play with that quickly. Like PXG, they actually go and all their fitters and builders stay up till 5 in the morning the next night building your clubs so they're on the range for you the next day, which is a crazy experience. It's kind of a once in a lifetime thing, which that's Parsons, man. That's what Bob does. He puts on a hell of a show. Patrick Svensson, did anything really surprise you at the PGA show? Yes, it did. I think the response, this is kind of a weird answer, but I was actually surprised that it was kind of funny not having TaylorMade there. Usually they have a big footprint at the show. I knew that they weren't going to be there for a long time, so it wasn't like a big surprise. But in a year that was so inundated with everybody having a hot driver and how excited they were about their driver, I was a little surprised that they didn't have some sort of a presence there. It wasn't really a negative thing. I was just sort of surprised. But then on top of that, I had the first opportunity to hit a lot of the Srixon irons, which I haven't, oddly enough, been able to put them through the ringer. And those irons really, I don't want to say they surprised me, but they were better than I thought they were going to be. And as I sit right now, like those irons to me are the ones that if I had to go grab a set, I would probably play those. Those felt the best. They flew the best. And I've hit a lot of stuff at this point, and I was very impressed with the Srixon irons. All of them, the utility, the 585, the 785, even the muscle backs, they were amazing. So once again, Srixon did a great job, and I think it all boils down to the sole, how they shape their sole in the turf interaction. They got that part figured out. Shane Harper, what was the reasoning for TaylorMade not being there? I think it was just marketing money. It wasn't lack of, it's just where they're going to direct their marketing money. In this market, you have to be very selective on where you're going to throw your marketing dollars, and putting marketing dollars into the show is expensive. And if they feel like they're going to get more traction and are not going there and putting that money somewhere else, then they do that. So it's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's all strategy. So that would be my hunch. Haven't really sat down and really hammered it out with their marketing people. But if I was going to guess, it was just they wanted to delegate those funds somewhere else. And it's not to pay for tour players, that I know. It's literally just they have some better ideas for that company. So they had better reasons to spend it somewhere else. Shane Harper, which irons would I game right now? If I had to select a set of irons, I would do the Srixon 4-iron utility, and then I would go 5 and 6 in the 585s, and then 7 through 9 in the 785s. That would be my configuration. They're so good. And I'm not on Cleveland's staff, but those irons are good. And the last iteration, 2 seasons ago or a season ago, those irons were amazing. So really solid. Really Srixon irons. Yes, Shane. Really solid irons. So that is that. You guys are asking some good questions. I need a sip of coffee before I keep going. They give you these PXG mugs too, by the way, amongst other things when you show up at Scottsdale. Okay. Actually, let me pose a question back to you guys for the people that are here. Oh, wait, here we go. Patrick O'Rourke, are new drivers much longer? Or is it just marketing hype? That's a great question. And something that I have the same, I say concern / questions. Is that I don't think, and one of my colleagues brought up a good point, which I'll get to in a second. It is marketing a little bit. I don't think that there's that holy cow driver that's going to come out that all of a sudden the normal golfer, like guys that would be on GolfWRX, are going to pick up and go, oh my God, I just picked up 20 yards. I think those days are gone. I think they've all kind of pushed the maximum off of a sweet spot hit to the max. A lot of them are now trying to find stability and some more forgiveness across the face. But even that's getting maxed out. So yeah, it is a little bit of a marketing hype, but it's also to capture the people that haven't bought a driver in 5 or 6 years. They still have to speak to those people and illustrate the fact that these new drivers are going a lot further than the other ones. It's no different than how I would market it. Maybe using different language, but yeah, it's a little bit of marketing hype. But that's the industry that we're in, and that's no different than cars or anything else. Speed sells. So, but it is concerning at some point that narrative's going to get old for all of us. So to answer your question, Pat, they're not much longer. It is a little bit of marketing, but it's also necessary to the people that aren't buying drivers every year, if that makes sense. I hope it does. Any single biggest standout from the show, either single club or manufacturer, besides the Srixon irons? From the show, no. Overall, the Cobra woods, the driver and the fairway woods are phenomenal. If you go on to some friends of mine from Toronto TXG, they just did a review on the Cobra driver, and they were really surprised about how hot it was and stable it was. I'm looking forward to getting the one that I'm hitting right now a little bit, through the paces a little bit more. But of everything I've tried, that one has been not way beyond anything else, but just across the board, it checks off every box. So I was very surprised because I'm not a big Cobra guy, or I haven't been in the past. And I really believe in that driver, and I've gotten to know their team a little bit, and that's a good company. They're doing good stuff, and they have a good crew, so I get excited for them. Let's see here. Any single big of the already asked. So Jason Ferreira, when are TXG or Bradley putters going to be on the podcast? That's a great question. Ian's a buddy of mine. Ian and I were actually thinking about doing some of the episodes of my podcast together. He's obviously a busy guy, and so am I. So lining up time for both of us to do the podcast and get in the studio and do it so it didn't sound like a circus has always been a challenge. But I'm going to get Ian on at some point, and probably a couple of the other guys. There's some really smart guys over there at TXG. It's not just Ian and Matt. There's actually a bunch of guys there that really know what they're doing. But I mean, how can you not love TXG? I mean, they're doing. That's just gear nerd YouTube heaven. So yeah, I'd love to have Ian, but I'm afraid that conversation might go for 6 hours. Bradley putters just came back on my radar. So I'm glad you brought them up. They're on my list of people to reach out to get on the podcast. So agree. Patrick O'Rourke, thanks. How about differences with new golf balls? Any noticeable difference from last year's models? Noticeable for me, no. There's obviously more companies coming out with golf balls now. Like Mizuno has a golf ball that they're excited about. I didn't see that one coming. But as far as golf balls are concerned, like, look, I'm not a tour professional. I don't. I've been playing a Titleist Pro V1X forever, and if you really put me through the paces, I couldn't tell you the difference between the one from 13 and the one now. Just because I just don't play enough golf. But I do know that what they are trying to do at a high level with these golf balls is getting it to perform well into a headwind and a crosswind at high speeds. That's the thing that they're really focusing in on now, because all the better players can spin it around the green. That's not an issue. So that's kind of what I'm seeing, is that they're really focusing on how these things fly into a headwind and a crosswind. What type of clubs, woods, irons, wedge putters do you think are improving most? I think putter shafts are getting a lot better. These Stroke Lab putters that Callaway has. And then the other stability shaft. I think that's a cool piece of technology that's going to go into a lot of putters. Wedges are wedges. It's all based on what kind of grind you like. I don't think wedge technology's all that crazy. People seem to go to what works. I think some of these high toe wedges that are coming out are interesting, but it's an old idea that's put into a new package. So that's that. The one thing I will say is that the woods, as long as they're getting what these companies now are able to do, because they can move the MOI and the CG around so much, they are getting more stable. So for the first time in a long time, there are certain woods out there, driver heads and 3-wood heads, that can actually take a crappy shaft and actually turn it into a good one because it's so stable. Before, that wasn't the case. A bad shaft, there was no fixing it. Now you can actually put a good head into a decent, like a halfway crappy shaft, and actually make it playable. I did have a random one. This is Shane Harper again. DJ was using a graphite shaft in his 2-iron. I was surprised he wasn't using the same shaft as his iron. I wasn't a fan of how light the hazardous shaft felt in the P790 2-iron. The reason why these guys go to a graphite shaft for the most part is just to give it that little extra oomph into the air, and then also the ability to keep it down. So sometimes with these steel shafts, if they really want to fling one up in the air at low spin, they can't. So the reason why Tiger or some of these guys would go to a Project X shaft or a graphite design shaft is because if they want to stick it into the ground and hit it a foot off the ground, they can, but also at the same time, they can hit that no spin straight up in the air shot. Those ones that you see that Jason Day hits that go 290 in the air. That shaft allows them to do that. I think with the heavier steel shafts, it limits the amount of that. It limits the ability to hit that rocket ball if they really want to hit it. That's my assumption, and that's sort of what I've heard. How much additional weight for a 44.25 Tensei? PO and a Titleist TS3. Are you asking as far as like how much additional head weight or additional overall weight, and to get it to what point, I guess would be my question for that, Steve. Like, are you talking about the insert into the head, or are you talking about to get it to a certain weight? I can't really answer that one unless I had a little more info. Yes, Shane, try one of the Stroke Lab putters. I've never really used Odyssey putters before, but the Stroke Lab putter, like what they're onto with that shaft, is actually very, very interesting. It's very stable, super stable. And TaylorMade's kind of doing it with what they're doing with the new Spider X. It's just creating stability in a different way. Steve Jousman, head weights. I don't exactly know. At 44.25, if I remember correctly, when I got my fitting done for the TS2 and TS3, I don't remember what weight they stuck, because the TS3 has different weight configurations. In the TS2, I'd have to remember, I'd have to actually go back and look at my notes, but they, because they fit me for a 44.5-inch driver with that shaft, actually. And I'd have to go back and look, but I will answer that question when I get to my notes. But I know exactly what you're asking. I wish I had that information at the top of my head. I just don't. What is your opinion on the best training device for swinging on plane and getting more speed? Tour Striker, Orange Whip, or anything else? The PlaneMate that those guys are coming out with, a Tour Striker, is awesome. Guys, the PlaneMate's not quite out yet, but it was sort of the training buzz at the show. I've tried it. It's on my Instagram. I'm not an endorser for it, but I believe in the product. That's a really, really cool thing. If you're trying to get your swing on plane, learn how to shallow the club out and actually build some torque and some speed at the bottom, that's a great product. Steve Jousman, I'm using plus 6G, then standard. I'd have to look. I think that's the configuration, but I was at 44.5. I don't think it matters between 44.25 and 44.5. But for me to get it to D4, they had to stick a different weight in there, and I don't know if it was 6 or an 8. I have to look. Zach, really excited to see the number 3 back in the Odyssey line, and everyone seems pretty high on Stroke Lab. Yes, they are. They should be. It's a cool idea. As anything else, like, they'll put it through the paces and we'll see how it performs. And ultimately, it's not, the one thing I want to say is it's not so much the tour, it's guys like us and people like us, guys and girls like us that are on these forums that are actually playing golf a lot. It's up to us to vocalize if this stuff actually works and vocalize why it doesn't work. One of the things that I've always been able to do is articulate why I like something and why I don't. And I think that that's important for golfers, especially when it comes to equipment. So it puts the ownership back on us. Like, what do we want to see? It's not just the tour that drives this whole thing. And at the end of the day, like, we're the ones that are buying these things. So let's see how the Stroke Lab performs. So far, the putts that I've hit and how it feels and the science behind it is pretty cool. David Dring with some input. You may be right. I have to look at my notes. I'm sorry, guys, on that one. Do you think raw Vokeys are worth getting over the new finishes? That's a personal preference for me. Yes, I like raw wedges. Raw wedges, just for your input, I don't know if you guys knew this, but raw wedges don't necessarily mean they're going to spin more. It's an optics thing. There's been tests done now, and I think there's something in the forums. I'd have to find the link, but in the forums it talks about raw wedges. Like, you think that there'd be rust on the face, that it would spin more. It actually doesn't. It's an optics thing. If you like looking at a raw wedge, which I do, I've been playing 588 raws since like 1998. The exception of a couple of Vokey slipping in and out of there. I'm used to raw wedges. I just like them, and they look cool. So that's part of it too. So that is that. Let's see what else here. I got a question for you guys. So, for everybody that's on here, what, in regards to, just going to ask a question. Have I hit the new TP5X? I have. It flies further than my Pro V1X by like 5 to 7 yards on average. It's really, really awesome into a headwind. I really love that golf ball. I'm just so emotionally connected to the Titleist golf ball box. And I talk a little bit about that on my podcast. I've been playing Titleist forever. Like I don't, it's an emotional thing. I don't know why. You could sit there and tell me that the TaylorMade ball is the best ball on the planet, or any other ball is the best ball on the planet. But I've been playing Titleist. I'm emotionally connected to that box. I don't know why. I just am. Maybe I'll spin off of that someday, but as of right now, that's just what I play. But it's a good ball. The TP5X is a great ball, and into a headwind, which is why it's designed that way, it does not waver. It holds its line really well on the wind. So if that's what you're looking for, that's the ball you should check out, which is you're going to see a lot of these TaylorMade guys, like you just saw Fowler switch for that reason. Wouldn't raw wedges feel softer as well without a finish laid over the top of the middle? That's correct. Yeah, that's right. It is a feel thing as well. Depending on what they, Vokey wedges are not forged wedges. There are forged raw wedges that are really, really soft. Vokey wedges, I think, have that sort of crisp feel, and they're still raw. I think that's one of the reasons why they're so popular. They feel very specific. So if you ask a lot of their tour players, what is it about a Vokey wedge beyond the grind? A lot of people just like how they feel, and a lot of it's because out of the rough and on short little shots, they still feel that crispness off the wedge. It's not too soft. And you sort of have to feel a little bit of that firmness. So some guys like that. I didn't know the new TaylorMade Spider X had a similar shaft to the Stroke Lab. It doesn't, as far as I know. If that's in regards to what I said before, what they're trying to do overall is just create a stable head. And some Callaway's doing it through their heads, but now they're trying it out with the shaft. And TaylorMade's trying to do it through their inserts and through this design of the new head and how it's weighted. So at the end of the day, they're trying to create stability through the stroke. Also, were you able to play the new Srixon Z-Star? Thoughts? I have not the new one. I really enjoyed the old one when I screwed around with it. They make great golf balls. But I go back to my Titleist thing. I've just been playing them forever. So they never made it into the bag, but I have tried them and they're good golf balls. Do you agree it's an unnecessarily difficult to get a hold of proper equipment when you have a high swing speed? It is if you don't get fit. And this is the conundrum. And I need to say this out loud. Getting fit, like for the general consumer, golf equipment's expensive, and adding a $200 or $300 price tag to go get fit and go get custom shafts is an other expense. It's expensive to get fit. And when you have a high swing speed, if you're talking about somebody that swings at 110 plus, if that's what you're talking about, yeah, it's difficult because it's expensive and it's time consuming. And the days of just going to a Roger Dunn and picking up a driver off the rack and having it be just that snowflake that you just take out and pound, there's too much information out there for me anyway. Like my head would spin. I would be worried that I didn't have the right. I spent $600 on something that wasn't right for me. So, as with anything else, you do have to go get fit. These days, it's a necessity, and you have to get fit by somebody that knows what they're doing. Guys like TSG, Club Champion, they're out there. There's millions of them out there, and they're all pretty good. So yeah, it is difficult in relation to how it used to be. Yes, that's a great observation, Steve. Alex Roberts, did I answer your question, Steve? Just give me a thumbs up if I did. Alex Roberts, will the new Mizuno balls be the real deal? I actually hit a couple of them yesterday. Off the driver, they feel really, really good. That's all I know about them. But I know it's Mizuno. They don't release something unless it's going to work. So I would assume that it's going to be a hit. And I don't think that their agenda is to take over the whole world with a golf ball. I think that they just came up with a really good one, and they want to have a golf ball out there that performs that some of their guys might play. But it's Mizuno. They don't miss too often. OEMs cater for tappers. I don't know what that one means. Patrick, Pro V1, Kenobi for life. Yep. So far. Patrick Orluck, lessons is the key to lower scores, not new clubs, true or false? Yeah. You got to work on your game. New clubs help. You got to have the right tools. So it's a combination of the two. So in a perfect world, which is not reality, it's an idealistic scenario, your teacher and your fitter and the people that are building your clubs, if are all sort of talking to each other so that you have the right tools in your hand to play well. But ultimately, like, you have to have fundamentals. You have to play and be able to hit the ball in the middle of the face and hit shots. So yeah, but it's sort of the harmony of all of them in a perfect scenario. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, if you can't swing, I don't care what club you give you, it's not going to matter. A good club can't make a bad golf swing good. But it can further your cause if you're working on your game, and having the right tools is always going to help. It's a weird answer. The UK have very limited places that have multiple shafts available. I'm assuming you're in the UK, so yeah, I mean, it is. You'd have to go. I don't know the name of the companies, but there are fitters. I know, like, at this is a stupid answer, but like at Wentworth out in that area, they have fitters. PXG has a ton of fitters in the UK. You know, a lot of the professionals out there are linked up with fitters or have fitting devices where you can get fit. Is it to the caliber that they do it in the States? I've never been to the UK to get fit. I don't know. But I know the game and the fitting culture is growing out that way. So hopefully it changes. But if you're telling me it's challenging out there, then I'm assuming it is. Zach, any thoughts on Club Champion? They're good. They're growing like crazy. Club Champion. I know Brian LaRoche is over. Brian Golf on IG is a fitter over there at their store in Florida. They're hustling. They're opening up stores like crazy. And they have some very capable fitters there. I've never is that a word? I've never purchased a set of clubs or gotten fit by Club Champion, but I know people that have, that seem to enjoy the experience. But I tend to just do everything with TXG, but just because they're in my backyard. But I've heard nothing but good things about Club Champion. Thoughts on the yellow Pro V? White golf balls all day. Can't do the yellow thing. Sorry, just can't do it. Even at night, I'd still hit a white golf ball. Bandit Baker, Jason McNiven in Bashing Stoke is highly remembered as a club fitter. There you go, Steve. Jason McNiven is a fitter. Thank you, Bandit. Great name. Let's see what else we got here. Great questions, guys. You know, as a first test to the platform, this has been fun. I've been hearing lots of talk about the new flag rules going to slow down the game instead of speeding it up. Some people in the group will want it in, then people repeat multiple times. I just can't get used to the flag stick. Like watching Adam Scott hit a 6-footer with a flag stick in, for some reason optically it doesn't make any sense. I wish they would have kept that off the tour. So yeah, I don't know, Patrick. That's a great question. Right now, I think it's a stupid rule, and you could tell me the science behind why it's good all day long. There's some things that just are sacred, and when everybody's on the green, the flag stick comes out. It's just, that's golf. It's just, maybe I'm an old dog and I'm old fashioned, but I just can't wrap my head around that and the new drop rule, dropping it from your kneecaps. Like that's a whole nother can of worms. So yeah. So good or stupid are my options. I would say it's a stupid rule. Thank you for that one. AD Mendoza, would you rather play around with John Daly or Bubba Watson? I would rather play with John Daly. Just because his life story, what the guy's put himself through personally and professionally, ups, downs, lefts, rights, all the while still having a good career. He's won some majors. He's raised the family. He's guys seen hell and back, and I think just for the stories, and he's just had access to everybody. I mean, John Daly's had one hell of a social life. He knows kind of everybody. I would just love to keep my mouth shut and listen to him tell stories. You got to remember that's, damn near 30 years of stories that this guy has living at that pace. That would be a fun one. Do you hate Brysons? Met God's methods as much as me. Backward step for golf. Why isn't he penalized for slow play? That's a great question. Do I hate it? No, I don't hate. Do I think that he makes it complicated for the people he's playing with? Probably. I've never played with Bryson, so I don't know. I know Brooks had some things to say about the pace of play. It's hard to argue with somebody that's winning. It really is. Like if Kevin Na, for example, was doing all that waggle stuff back, 4 or 5 years ago and was winning the Players in a bunch of tournaments, it would be a very hard argument because he's winning. The tour is such a unique bird, man. It's what happens on the tour doesn't necessarily happen, when we're out playing with our buddies. So I don't know why he isn't penalized for slow play. I don't know how many warnings the guy gets. They don't really bring that up. And I don't know if, a lot of the people that are complaining are guys that play fast and he just makes them impatient. I don't know the whole narrative there. But I do know that his pre-shot routine is not the quickest. So that might change with age. He's still a young man. So we'll see. Play golf with Bubba and drink with tea. That's funny. 80 Mendoza said he's unbelievably talented, but if you teach kids like this, I don't want to play. Okay. So Steve, you just brought up a good point. So that's the thing which is why the tour gets very, very tricky, is because the optics of it all for our kids, my boys, I have 2 boys. If for whatever reason they fall in love with Bryson DeChambeau or anybody that plays slow, like I've never played with Bryson DeChambeau. I don't know how slow it is. So I need to preface that by saying I don't know how slow he is. I know he's just deliberate, but I don't know what that feels like. So take that with a grain of salt. But just in general, the guys on tour need to understand, and a lot of them do, that the kids are watching and they're going to emulate what those guys do. So like, guys like Ricky Fowler, for example, he's a great mouthpiece and a great role model for the game because he just plays golf and he's having fun and he speaks up when he has something to say, and he is gracious in defeat, and he's a good representative for the game. There's a bunch of them out there, like JT and Spieth and all those guys. Even in their bad moments, they're still setting a good example. But with Bryson, or I should say with somebody that plays slowly, it's not the best example, but at the same time, for my boys, I'm their old man. I need to teach them how to play fast. So as much as I would love to blame if my kids ever turned out to be slow players, they're going to learn from their old man and the people that they play with at home about what's fast and what's slow. So unfortunately, the onus is on me to make sure my kids understand the pace of play and that they play fast. And if they get on tour and play slow, then so be it. That's nothing you can do about that. I'm saying this as I used to play a mini tour called Euro Pro, and it took 6 hours some rounds. Yeah, I mean, the professional tours are slow, and it's boring. You go to a major U.S. Open, those are 6-hour rounds all the time. But I've never played professional golf. You have. I don't know what that's like. Guys are grinding out there. So anyway, I think the ruling on Huttung was about his caddy lining him up on the putt, not slow play. Could be wrong, though. That's correct. That was more of an alignment thing. His caddy, I don't think, stepped away fast enough. I think he'd actually addressed the putt or addressed the practice stroke, and your caddy has to be out of the way before he hits the putt or before he addresses the putt. Yes, you are correct, Patrick. Tour pros are deliberate when they're putting, but I've never played in a tournament for $7 million. I would probably take my time too, at least a little bit more than I do now. I barely read a putt anymore. Anyone who takes more than 3.5 hours for 18 holes should be. Well, there's that too. There's that too. Yeah, I mean, in regards to these guys, whether it's Bryson, Kevin Na, Ben Crane, look, there's guys out in the tour that play fast as all hell. Like Bubba Watson barely lines a shot up. Freddie Couples plays fast. Like he really doesn't, he walks around slow, but he gets over a shot and hits it and chases it down. Yes, they need to speed up overall. Like it needs to speed up. Some guys are really, really slow. But I don't think that one man is making a 6-hour round possible. I think it's the combination of the whole field. So there's a lot of things within the rules and things that are people are doing out on tour and in these big tournaments that make it slow. And in the majors, it's excruciatingly slow because one, it's a major, and two, the golf courses are set up like a circus. So that's what are you going to do? That's professional golf. So once again, I go back to saying like, yeah, they could speed it up, but it's professional golf. They're going to go as fast as they need to go or slow as they need to go. Okay, let's see. TXG, Tour Experience Golf. Didn't Acre give you a new hat last week? They did. They did. I just like this one. Today's Wednesday. I wanted to wear this one. That's either Mikey or Ian asking that question. Did you find the Cobra Driver to be the quickest for yourself? I mean, just don't think I could bring myself. Overall, yes. The Cobra Driver, and in my possession, I have a bunch of them. Not all of them, but a bunch of the drivers, and they've all been fit for me. They've all been very, very close to each other, but consistently 10 balls, 10 balls on each driver. 8 out of 10, the Cobra was going to be faster by a couple miles an hour than the other ones, and the mishits stayed in play. And it, for me, it just felt and sounded the best out of all of them. I really like that head. It's got a really heavy head. It's actually a lighter head, but it's more of a heavy hit. So that's the one I'm excited about is the Cobra. They made a hell of a driver this year. And the 3 and the 5 woods, the pros, which I just got a couple weeks ago, are phenomenal. They feel good. They have the baffler rails on the bottom. So I'm assuming out of the rough, those things are going to be amazing. And they did a hell of a job this year. Cobra did. They really, really did. As did everybody, but especially I was really surprised with what they did. I'm really enjoying their stuff. Boy, Ian, if you're watching this is like rapid fire. Like, this is going by quickly. Let's see what's next here. Matt Logo, sure hope Cobra takes a big chunk of the driver market this year. Truth be told, they may. I don't know if it's really about that. I think this year is their first year because they've always made good drivers. The F8 was a good driver. People really enjoyed that driver. I don't know if it's all about taking market share. Like, truth be told, TaylorMade and Ping, Ping had the driver of the year last year, and the G410 is pretty awesome this year. I think Cobra, what they did with this driver is they're getting back into the conversation. People are going to look at them again, which is awesome, which is a huge win for them because I don't think people were necessarily throwing them into the I need to hit this driver conversation. So that's cool for them. That's what I love about what they did this year is people are remembering how great of a company Cobra is. Thoughts on the Lynx driver? I hit one ball with it at the PGA Show. And Brian Knudsen, who's on Two Guys Talking Golf, hit 3 or 4 balls with it. He piped it. He seemed to like it and said it felt good. The shot that I hit was literally like in dress shoes, and I hit it so far off the hosel, it didn't matter. So no thoughts. I just hit off the hosel. Do you have Pro Orange in your bag? Unsure what's better than that or the Kurokage. I have a Tensei Orange, a 70 TX, and one of my drivers. I don't like the feel of it for some reason. Of all the Tensei driver shafts that are out there, the Tensei Blue CK Pro Series, the 70 TX or the 60 TX, that's an awesome shaft. It reminds me of the Blue Board, Diamante Blue Board from back in the day. I really like that shaft, and it actually spins more than I need it to, but it just feels really good. Patrick O'Rourke, I heard Hanma irons can cost $85,000 based off of materials. Is this right? I have no idea. And I need to say this about Hanma. They made a beautiful iron, and what they're trying to do is really, really interesting. But I have no idea what the business model is, meaning like I don't know how they're going to distribute the product, how they're going to get people fit, like what the setup is, or the cost. I really don't know. It's as much of a question mark for me as it is for you. But they made a beautiful iron, and it helps when Justin Rose goes out and lights up the field in this kind of his second official event, and striped it all over the golf course. So they're doing something right over there, that's for sure. And they got some good people working over there too. You know, it's going to be an interesting story. I don't know how that whole thing's going to play out. I think that's those crazy gold-plated ones. Pretty sure typical sets are more typical. Yeah, Zach, I don't. The $85,000 set, Patrick, I think Zach's right. I think there's a solid gold or a gold-plated set, but I don't think that's not something I would ever have my hands on. How many beers to get nuts and drunk, over or under 10? I don't know. I will say this. He's like the sweetest human being in the planet, Brian Knudsen is. So I will guess. I'll say it's probably under 10. I'll say under 10 to get him drunk. But who knows? Who really knows the answer to that one? But he's a good human being. I'm a big fan of BK. All right, who's next? ST 180 or 190, colors aside. In regards to the Mizuno driver, I really like the 190. That is a good looking driver, the Mizuno driver. And I think, we're going to be doing a little bit of coverage on it on the site, a little bit more in depth, but that's a hell of a good looking driver. So yeah, but that's the one I would choose. Haven't quite hit that one yet, but I'm excited to. I think we're going to go and banging around here in a week or so. So that's that. What I have a question for you guys that are on here. Is there a podcast guest that I'm missing that you guys want to hear from besides Bradley Putters, or is there a player or a rep or somebody that I'm missing that I haven't quite got yet that you guys really want to hear from? I would be interested to know that. And also in regards to just content in general, like what do you guys think is missing? Like, is there a topic, equipment topic or something that we're not quite covering that you guys would be interested in hearing about, whether it's more tour stuff or fitting stuff? I know Ryan Barrett's doing a great job of incorporating a lot of fitting stuff and building stuff onto the site. So that's been a cool thing to have access to. So be curious to know what you guys think as far as content's concerned. Best 3-wood shaft, the Acra, the new one that just came out. I just hit it in a Titleist 3-wood last night, and it is awesome. Thank you, Steve. Me too. Tiger Woods. Can you imagine the gear dive with Tiger Woods? I can't even wrap my head around that one. Just the optics of like that headline, it blows my brain up. I'm a little biased being from but Crackin Golf does some interesting pieces. I've heard of them. That's a good idea. So I will write that one down. A couple other people have recommended them as well. So that's good. Just to let you guys know, like in the upcoming shows, we do have a person from Honda coming on in the next couple of weeks. Greg Norman's going to be coming on the show. I'm working on John Daly, David Toms. I'm working on with his team to get him on the show, and some other tour guys. But yeah, I mean, the first half of this year is going to be a lot more tour guys and a few senior tour guys, which is cool. I'm trying to get Rocco Mediate on the show as well. Add more lessons, tips, drills to improve Patrick Reed on the show. I'm trying to get Patrick Reed on the show. That's a really hard one. So Patrick, you're bringing up a good point. So one of the things that we're working on the site is to have a more concise voice in regards to lessons and tips, and to have more digestible bite-sized information. So we're working with a lot of top teachers all across the board. Guys that are working on tour players, guys that work with kids, guys and girls that work with kids and tour players across the board. And we're sort of building up a data bank of lesson videos and tips, so that little by little every week we have, you know, some really good, simple, bite-sized stuff that you can work on at the range and at home. So look out for that stuff. I'm really pushing on that to get that content out sooner than later. Because right now on the site, it is a little bit, there's a lot of stuff on there, but you know, there's a ton of it. It can get lost in there. So we're trying to make it a little bit more specific and a little bit more bite-sized and simple. But the people that are providing content for us right now are doing a great job. But we're just trying to simplify that process a little bit more. So thank you for that. That's good feedback. Let's see. Oh, and the other product, somebody asked us a while back as far as training product. I just got my hands on the hanger from Watson's Golf. I love it. I just don't know if I can. It's going to take me a minute to actually be able to hit the middle of the face with it, because I just don't. I don't release it the way that you're supposed to. But for my swing, that's gonna really help, especially making practice swings and stuff like in the house, because it's snowing here in Toronto. That is a product I'm excited to work with a little bit more too. Paige Sporanic video show. She's with golf.com, so she's kind of spoken for. Our ability to do stuff with Paige is kind of, that ship has kind of sailed, but she's a hardworking girl. She's doing her thing. Best brewery in Toronto. My favorite place in Toronto is Pacific Junction, which is right down the street from my office. My buddy owns it. It's awesome. Why do you think companies don't look at lefties as their loss leader? I have no idea. I think that goes back to some sort of a data bank where they figure out how many left-handed golfers there are, and they figure out when they're doing their marketing or their manufacturing spends, the cost benefit of making left-handed golf clubs. I don't know. That's a mystery. And I ask that all the time. For me, it's an obvious thing. You'd always make left-handed golf clubs. And I thought what Titleist did a few years back by making that lefty set, the Phil Mickelson set, the PMs, I thought that was kind of awesome for left-handed golfers because it was specific to them. And that was a beautiful set of irons. Ask Knudsen. Well, I'm in Toronto. Knudson's in Dearborn, Michigan. I'd have to ask him what his favorite brewery is. Bradley, that's actually great. I know Scott. He's become sort of a pal. He was on my podcast early on. Yeah, I mean, I try to randomly ask him questions every now and again, but when he's one of the busiest trucks out there, believe it or not. So when he's in it, and he's hard to pin down. But he's obviously a very passionate guy. So yeah, I mean, if I could get Scott to provide more information to me, I would, but he also has to respect the privacy of what they're doing. So, but he was on the podcast. That's a good show. You should listen to it. What's my favorite club to hit with right now? Probably the Cobra Driver that I just got. Probably my favorite club is the Cobra Driver. It's a fun one to hit. And the Cobra 5-wood, it's pretty amazing. I'll put money on BK Loving Founders. Oh, that's a good bet. That is a good bet. Why does everyone in the forums carry their driver 330? I don't know. I don't carry mine 330. It's the forums, man. Like, I don't know. I don't know. You know, it's always like there's reality and what people actually do on the course and what they do in the forums. Like, I don't carry it 330. I can tell you that. I know that Matt Blois from TXG, if you guys ever watch those videos, he can carry it like 320. He pounds it. If you guys ever watch those videos, he swings it like, you know, and this is a guy that's not on tour. He's a big left-handed kid. He's swinging that thing like 124, 125, and the ball speed's like 175 to 180, and he pounds it. He's a freak. I assume you're looking for a more sophisticated answer than they lie. Probably. I don't know why everyone in the forums carries their driver 330 yards. I don't know. Maybe they are telling the truth. I don't know. It's a good question. One I can't answer. That's a big, it's going to take a lot of research to answer that one. Maybe it's funner to say I carry it 330 than I carry it 270. I don't know. Can't answer that one. You got about 6 more minutes, guys. Let's see what else we got here. Matthew Browning. What's for the people that are pretty active on these questions, like what club are you guys excited about seeing this year? Is there one that you guys are curious about, or one that you know, that you're excited to go out and hit, or one that you've hit already that you really love? Be curious to know that. See if we have any more questions here. Let's see here. Curious why the other OEMs have not jumped on the multiple more than 2 or 3 bandwagon. RG, what is that in regards to? Multiple more than 2 or 3 bandwagon. Curious to know what that means. Zach, excited to see if Ping can improve the G400 somehow. I hit the G410. I loved it. I think it's a great driver. The G400, especially the LST, is going to be a really hard driver to improve upon. But we'll see. That was, I know with the fitters and, you know, for last year, like that was a hot driver across the board for everybody. So yeah, it's going to, I wonder if they will be able to improve on it. I have an M2, want to demo Ping 410 and M6. The M2, if you have the right head, meaning like if you have one that you love, those drivers are really hard to duplicate. So just truth be told, if you go into a hitting bay or a fitter, the people that I know that have the M2 that have gone in to test for new stuff, 5 times out of 10 that they end up staying with the M2. That driver is a snowflake. So just keep that in mind. That's a really hard driver to beat. It's like the old for me, it was like the super fast TP, the black-headed one that came out like, I don't know, in 2006, 2007 from TaylorMade. For some reason, that head held up for like 6 years. I just couldn't find anything. It was just a random non-spinning, the head flew. The Z75, I picked up a Z785 driver and it kicked out my Cleveland Classic. Strixon made a good driver. I didn't hit it all that well, but the people that I know that have hit it and have got fitted for it seem to really like the way it feels. I don't know how it stacks up numbers-wise, but I know the feel and the sound. People really liked how it felt, so can't go wrong. Strixon makes good products. RG, definitely the ST190. Sorry, with relation to grinds. Oh, I see. Are you talking about like in regards to like how Vokey has S grind, V grind? Are you talking about that on wedges? Okay. I think it's just manufacturing costs. Vokey has marketing, they have market share, they have the ability to go out, and also they're not forged heads, so I think that their price per stick is a little bit lower than a forged head would be. And they market their grinds. I mean, it's you know, they're very specific grinds to that company. So you know, a lot of companies are going with low bounce, high bounce, mid bounce. You know, not a lot of them are going with like the K grind, you know, S grind. Callaway does it and Vokey does it. And I believe like Ping does it in a certain way, but there's not a lot of OEMs that do it that way. And I think a lot of it just has to do with marketing costs and just manufacturing costs. It's easier to stick it into one package. What carry bag would you recommend? Want something light and no club tangle? Jones all day long. I've had a Jones bag my whole life. If I was going to spin off to anything else, I would get the Vessel carry bag, just because it's so high quality. But I'm so used to a Jones bag, it's hard to argue with a bag that I've used for 25 years. RG, great question. And if you follow me on Instagram, if you ever want to know a little bit more about, you've had a lot of good questions on here, but you know, I'm at Johnny Golf WRX, guys. So if you ever have any questions offline, you want to DM me, fire away. I'm happy to answer whatever. I know this was kind of a random Q&A. I just wanted to see how it felt and how it felt for you guys. So you guys are asking some awesome questions, so I appreciate it. A couple more. In a time where golf club companies are trying to make things cheaper and less quality, is there a player's distance iron that you would recommend from a brand that makes excellence? The Mizuno Hot Metal Pros for a player's distance iron is awesome. Really, really awesome. It looks good. It feels good. It flies good. Like that, they got that one figured out. If you're looking for a player's iron, the Srixon Z585 also is a good player's distance iron. It's probably a couple of ticks below a distance iron, but it's another one that flies really far and feels really good. As far as like cheaper is concerned, you know, truth be told, the distance irons, especially the ones that are tailored towards players, are always going to be forged with a ton of technology. So like the AMG, Mercedes-Benz AMG model for any OEM is always going to be their player's distance iron because it takes so much technology to make it feel good and fly far. So like the Callaway, the Apex forged, like that's their Ferrari. It's not necessarily the forged one; it's the other one because it's got so many materials in it. So finding one that is cheap-ish is challenging. I think that's about it, guys. Is there one more? Let's see if we get one more straggler. I'll let it run for about another 45 seconds. But this was a fun experiment for me. And I already sort of know how I would, you know, make it a little bit more organized. How about a Miura as far as a player's distance iron? Yeah, those are all Miura, Hanma. If you're going to spend that much money on a set of irons, I don't think you would I don't know if you would want to get, they don't really make players distance irons. They make some cavity backs, that are chunkier than the forged blades, the forged player cavity backs. But, if I was going to go out and buy a set of players distance irons, I would probably go look towards PXG, some of their versions, Mizuno. Titleist makes a good one. Callaway makes a good one. Just depends on what the optics, like what you want to look at, but they all perform really well. But guys, I'm going to peel off of this thing, but this was a fun experiment for me. I really appreciate all the questions. I would be really curious to know how you guys all thought that this went down. If you guys enjoyed it, if you like the format or want to see more stuff like this, please let me know. I'm at Johnny Golf WRX on Instagram. The big page is at Golf WRX. So if you have any anything to say, any feedback or whatever, if you guys really like this format or want to pick a topic to talk about, I love it. I get to sit around and talk to golf junkies about golf stuff. And we have more gearheads that work for the site: Ryan Barrett, Brian Knudsen, Rob Miller. You know, we have some really, really fun, smart guys in regards to equipment that at the drop of a hat would love to get online and talk with you guys. So let's I like to keep this a regular thing. So if the feedback is good, we'll just keep coming back at it and talk a little bit more. So and hopefully it's a little warmer so I don't have to wear a scarf while I do this. But anyway, you guys have a great rest of the week. More to come from Golf WRX. And thanks for being part of this experiment with me. This is a lot of fun for me. Probably a lot more fun for me than it was for you. All right, guys. Peace out. Take care of yourselves. Bye.